Thanks for watching this video series about the Antichrist and the false prophet, the two beasts of Revelation 13. It's tempting to think that a few of these signs might also apply to another person. While that is true, it's very important to understand that it's the combination of all of these biblical verses pointing to one specific person that should make us stand up and take notice. And that one specific person that all of these verses point to is Donald J. Trump. Thanks again for watching, and let's begin. Number 1. The Antichrist will come in his own name. The first major hint of the identity of the Antichrist comes from Jesus, who told the Pharisees, "I have come in my Father's name, and you do not receive me. If another comes in his own name, him you will receive." Coming in the name of someone means that you are speaking on their behalf, representing their authority or interest. This is what Jesus did as he spoke on behalf of and represented God the Father. By the time Trump burst onto the political scene, he already had marked his own name on dozens of buildings, properties, and products around the world. He had made a name for himself long before running for president. He has used the cachet of his own name as an entry point into politics and to gain acceptance with Christian evangelicals. Trump's name is so well known that former White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney stated that it is the most recognizable name in the English language and probably around the world.
Play golf at Trump Bedminster. He goes to play golf at Trump up in Sterling. And everybody asks the question, is it not a huge marketing opportunity? I would simply ask you all to consider the possibility that Donald Trump's brand is probably strong enough as it is, and he doesn't need any more help on that. This is not like it's the most recognizable name in the English language and probably around the world right now.
Jesus warned us that someone would come in his own name and be accepted, and that's exactly what has happened with Donald J. Trump. Number 2. The Antichrist is named the Little Horn. Trump's name is also connected to the name of the Antichrist in another curious way. The word Trump actually appears twice in the King James Bible, in Corinthians and again in 1 Thessalonians. In both instances, the word Trump means trumpet. Why is this important? In the book of Daniel, the Antichrist is specifically given the name of the Little Horn. This is exactly what a trump or trumpet is. A little horn, both in the size of the modern trumpet as well as in ancient times the trumpet was fashioned out of the horn of a small animal. Here's what Daniel saw in his vision. "I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. In this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things." In Daniel's vision, the Antichrist is given the name of the little horn, but we're also specifically told it has eyes like a man and a mouth that speaks great things. So it's quite clear that we're talking about an actual person. This person, the little horn or little trump, is a man with a big mouth who will boast great things. Number 3. The Antichrist is named the man of sin. In 2 Thessalonians, we find the Antichrist referred to as the man of sin. He is, to put it another way, sin incarnate. The sins that the Bible referred to over and over again are those related to vanity, to dishonesty, to lust, to greed, to envy, and to wrath. Trump has, in both his personal and business ventures, lived not only an extremely sinful life, but has even bragged about his lust, his greed, his desire for vengeance, and his inability to forgive. He is not only a sinful man, but he has taken pride in his sinning. He seems to view them as badges of honor. Trump has seemingly treated each sin of the Bible as if it were on his personal bucket list waiting to be checked off. Number 4. The Antichrist is named the Lawless One. Part and parcel of living such a sinful life, Trump has adopted an attitude of playing by his own rules, or more accurately, no rules at all. And again, we find that the Bible has yet another name to describe this aspect of the Antichrist. He is called the Lawless One. Trump has consistently and unabashedly considered himself above the law beginning on day one of his presidency.
In the day's other news, President Trump argued he has, quote, an absolute right to pardon himself in the Russia investigation. But in a series of tweets, he then said, "Why would I do that when I have done nothing wrong?"
from claiming executive privilege on everyone who had even a minor interaction with the White House to outright refusing to comply with congressional subpoenas. He has even claimed that Article 2 of the Constitution allows him to do whatever he wants.
Then I have an Article 2 where I have the right to do whatever I want as president, but I don't even talk about that.
Trump notoriously said that he could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and not lose any votes. As shocking as that might have sounded, his lawyers went a step further and argued in court that even if Trump had actually shot someone, he could not even be investigated while in office. In short, the president and his political allies believe that he has absolute immunity from even being investigated, let alone being held to account. Legal and constitutional scholars are repeatedly shocked at how much power he believes he has as president and how little desire he has to abide by current laws. Number 5. The Antichrist is named the Wicked Man. In Proverbs 6, verses 12 through 15, we see a description for the Antichrist, and this passage is referred to as the wicked man. He is described as a worthless person, a wicked man with a perverse mouth. Perversity is in his heart. He devises evil continually. He sows discord. These verses describe how the Antichrist is a worthless and wicked man. He has a perverse, vulgar mouth that speaks lies, and he constantly has evil in his heart. He accuses others of doing the things that he does, and he continually is sowing discord. In other words, this is Trump in a nutshell, the wicked man. Number 6. The Antichrist is extremely boastful. In the book of Daniel, the Antichrist has a mouth speaking great things, and as described in the book of Revelation, he has the mouth of a lion, as well as a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. Trump and boasting go hand in hand, so much so that we all expect to hear it whenever he speaks.
Nobody knows the system better than me.
Nobody knows politicians better than I do.
Nobody knows. Nobody's better.
Nobody's stronger. There's nobody bigger or better at the military than I am.
I love the First Amendment. Nobody loves it better than me.
Nobody loves the Bible more than I do.
There is nobody that respects women more than I do.
Nobody builds walls better than me.
Nobody in the history of this country has ever known so much about infrastructure as Donald Trump. Nobody knows debt better than me.
Nobody even understands it but me.
Nobody can do it like me.
He will lavish praise on himself for what he has accomplished, for what he plans to accomplish, for what others have accomplished, for his own IQ, for his own wealth, and even for his own physical appearance. He boasts so often and about so many different things that it's odd to hear him go for more than a moment or two without bragging. Whether or not the things he brags about are true is of little importance to him, of course. Number 7. The Antichrist is profoundly arrogant. The Antichrist is an exceptionally arrogant person. According to the book of Daniel, the Antichrist shall magnify himself in his heart, will consider himself superior, and shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god. Trump's enormous ego and pride have resulted in his wildly inflated view of his own importance. His accomplishments, whether real or imagined, have brought forth an astounding level of vanity. His arrogance is so extreme that he stated in the 2016 campaign that only he can solve our problems.
Which is why I alone can fix it.
Trump's arrogance leads him to denigrating others in order to elevate himself. He knows more than anyone else on any given topic, even if he's referring to people who are experts in their field. Other people, according to him, are always impressed with how much he knows. After all, as he reminds us on many occasions, he is a genius. Number 8. The Antichrist is a pathological liar. In the Bible, the Antichrist is described as someone who cares so little for the truth that he is said to cast truth to the ground. Although lying certainly existed before Trump was president, he has single-handedly brought terms such as post-truth and truth decay into our everyday lexicon. He has done this by lying so often that he has, in essence, cast truth to the ground as if it was worthless, just like the Antichrist was prophesied to do. Trump's desire to play hard and fast with the truth was a known fact for 40 years before his becoming president. His history is rife with dishonesty and outright deception. He exaggerated and twisted facts to such an extent that they became barely recognizable half-truths, if not outright falsehoods. He brought his penchant for dishonesty into the Oval Office as president, and now peddles his lies to an audience that values making liberal heads explode over hearing the truth. He speaks falsehoods so frequently that anyone listening to him should start with the assumption that he's probably lying. Before capitulating to Trump back in 2016, Ted Cruz accurately said this about Trump.
This man is a pathological liar. He doesn't know the difference between truth and lies. He lies practically every word that comes out of his mouth. And in a pattern that I think is straight out of a psychology textbook, his response is to accuse everybody else of lying. He accuses everybody on that debate stage of lying. And it's simply a mindless yell. Whatever he does, he accuses everyone else of doing. The man cannot tell the truth, but he combines it with being a narcissist. A narcissist at a level I don't think this country's ever seen.
Number 9. The Antichrist is a vile person. The Antichrist has several distinct character or personality traits according to the Bible, including one that describes him as a vile person. Vile is defined as lacking class or decency, a sordid, crass, vulgar, and despicable person. Donald Trump is unquestionably a crude, classless, and vile man. He uses immature, disparaging, and often vulgar language to target others for everything from their ethnicity to their gender, even to their disability. He attacks people for their height, their looks, their intelligence, and simply because they've criticized him. He has bragged about his sexual exploits with married women. He has made crude comments to his own niece and about his own daughter. He had an affair with a porn star while his third wife was home pregnant with his fifth child. He admitted to purposely walking unannounced into the dressing rooms of contestants at his beauty pageants, often underage contestants. He was close friends with alleged pedophiles, not just Jeffrey Epstein, but another alleged pedophile by the name of John Casablancas. Trump has been accused of rape at least twice, once by a woman who said she was 12 years old when it happened, and again by his wife in a divorce decree. At least 24 other women have accused him of sexual misconduct. Trump coerced his father, who was battling early stages of dementia at the time, to rewrite his will to leave out the family of his recently deceased brother Fred. After his father died, his brother's family sued to protest the change to the will. Trump's response? He had the rest of his family stop giving medical support payments to one of his brother's children who was mentally and physically disabled. Number 10. The Antichrist has a stout look. In the book of Daniel, the Antichrist is described as having a look that was more stout than his fellows. In this verse, stout means to act more haughty or more full of himself than those around him. It also alludes to an arrogance and even an appearance of being heavy-set. Trump's extreme vanity is on full display whenever he is speaking, and his self-congratulatory style is evident upon his face. He will profusely praise himself and then hold his chin up as the crowd cheers, beaming at the adulation. The only times he praises others is when they first praise him, feeding his outsized ego for yet another day. Number 11. The Antichrist is both Assyrian and Roman. The Antichrist is called the Assyrian in the book of Micah, and the book of Daniel alludes to the Antichrist as being Roman. I'll cover this more in a future video, but many people confuse these verses to mean that the Antichrist will be Muslim or from Europe or the Middle East. In fact, the Bible does not specifically state where the Antichrist is born. Trump's ancestral family is from Karlstadt, a small town in the Rhine River region of southwestern Germany. This same region was once home to a people who were a mix of both Assyrian and Roman heritage after Rome invaded in the 1st century BC. It is extremely probable that Trump's family has a direct lineage to people who have both Assyrian and Roman DNA. In addition, these verses refer to a time in the near future when the Antichrist will be connected to Rome via the next pope, the false prophet. This pope will be a very pro-Trump pope. There's also coming a time when the Antichrist will occupy or perhaps even own the same land as the ancient Assyrians. According to Daniel, the Antichrist shall divide the land for gain, and Trump has said many times that we should keep the oil of places we go to war at in the Middle East. Number 12. The Antichrist will deny the Father and the Son. In 1 John we read, "Who is a liar but he that denieth that Jesus is the Christ? He is the Antichrist that denieth the Father and the Son." Trump infamously said that he does not seek forgiveness from God, and that he simply doesn't bring God into that picture. Despite this, his Christian supporters often refer to him as a baby Christian, or one that is still growing in the faith. The first step toward becoming a Christian is to seek forgiveness from God and accept Jesus as one's Savior. Not only has Trump not done this, but he has specifically denied even the need to do so, instead seeking forgiveness from himself. Trump has clearly denied the forgiveness of God and the salvation of Jesus Christ. He is not Christian or baby Christian in any manner of speaking. Number 13. The Antichrist sows discord. I mentioned Proverbs 6 a few moments ago, but let's take a closer look at verse 14, which says that the Antichrist sows discord. Trump has repeatedly sowed discord in his nation with the idea to promote himself without regard to the truth. Even going back to before he was president, his so-called investigation into Obama's birth certificate with the imaginary private investigators in Hawaii was a prime example of his willingness to lie to promote himself and to divide Americans against one another. Recently, at the July 4th fireworks display at Mount Rushmore, Trump once again sowed discord as he told his supporters how evil the left is. In hateful rhetoric that is all too common for him, he paints half the country as evil while praising those who support him. As this video is being made, Trump is stoking racial tensions in order to win re-election. Trump's cross of hatred is burning in America's front yard, and racial strife is all but assured. Trump purposely sows discord by denigrating others. It's a strategic ploy of his to gain power and receive praise. This is exactly what the Antichrist does. Number 14. The Antichrist will do as he pleases. The Antichrist is described as doing as he pleases according to the book of Daniel, and this harkens back to another name for the Antichrist, the lawless one. In other words, the Antichrist will not feel restrained by any law and will simply do as he wishes whenever he feels like it. Trump is already on record as saying, "I have an Article 2 where I have the right to do whatever I want as president." Trump seems to be echoing Nixon here, who once said, "When the president does it, that means it's not illegal." Trump takes it a step further, though, and appears to be saying that there is nothing illegal or legal about what a president does because he can do whatever he wants. Nearly every constitutional scholar disagrees with Trump's claim of such far-reaching powers, but the point is that Trump thinks he has such power. His administration embraces the unitary executive theory, the idea that the president controls all powers that are executive in nature without oversight from other branches of government. Trump is rushing full steam ahead in his bid to do whatever he pleases as president, and this trait is one that he, again, shares with the Antichrist. Number 15. The Antichrist is of Satan. There are three main verses in the Bible that talk about how Satan brings about the Antichrist. We have 2 Thessalonians, which says that the Antichrist's coming is after the working of Satan. And we have the book of Daniel, which says that the Antichrist will be mighty, but not by his own hands. And also, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. Trump loves to brag that his shocking win in the 2016 election was because of his own brilliance. In truth, there are probably a dozen different reasons for Trump's victory, and none of them have anything to do with Trump's alleged brilliance. If we look back, it was a perfect storm of wildly chaotic events that led us to President Trump. The likelihood of all of these things happening at the same time simply boggles the mind. But beyond that, there was also a concerted effort by the alt-right to use the occult to aid in Trump's election. I'll cover this more in a future video, but you'll find a link below to an interesting book called Dark Star Rising: Magic and Power in the Age of Trump. It explains the efforts of the alt-right to use rituals and chaos magic to aid Trump's 2016 election, and, by extension, how they will also be involved in his 2020 re-election. As a side note, his 2020 campaign manager has referred to his re-election machine as the Death Star, a most appropriate name. Number 16. The Antichrist works deceitfully. The Antichrist is prophesied to work deceitfully, and that his cunning will cause deceit to prosper under his rule. Trump's reputation for being deceptive was a known fact for several decades before becoming president. His dishonesty was so pervasive that his own bankruptcy attorneys testified under oath that they would only meet with him in pairs in order to prevent him from giving two different versions of the same story had they met with him individually. It should be no surprise that a man of his character, or lack thereof, should continue to be so deceitful as president. Many of those who have left the Trump White House speak of his profound deceitfulness on a wide range of issues. Number 17. The Antichrist is compared to a beast. The Antichrist is the first beast in Revelation 13, an evil monstrosity bent on taking whatever it wants by force and leaving a trail of destruction behind. It is simply a force of nature which cannot be stopped. Trump himself perfectly reflects these characteristics, with his extreme greed, desire for vengeance and praise, and seemingly unstoppable ability to get what he wants. Despite how things may appear at the moment, the truth is that Trump cannot and will not be stopped by man, and he will continue to get his way on everything ranging from the border wall to winning the 2020 election to seeking vengeance on his enemies. Number 18. The whole world marvels at the beast. The Bible makes it clear that the world is astonished at the Antichrist and is amazed at what it does. This verse could read the whole world marvels at Trump, and it would also be 100% accurate. Indeed, we have been inundated with news of Trump from the moment he came down the escalator to announce his candidacy to be president. The media was so fascinated by this person who could say or do anything at any second that they couldn't look away. None of us could. Now that he's president, the whole world does marvel at him. They simply don't know what strange thing he might do or say next, or who he might attack. As leader of the most powerful nation in the world, they certainly want to be on his good side, but are constantly left aghast at his words and actions. They marvel after him and are constantly astonished at what he says and does. Number 19. The beast arises out of the bottomless pit. According to the book of Revelation, the beast, or the Antichrist, shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. Back in the 2016 Republican primary, all of the candidates tried to figure out how to best counter Trump without going down to his level. No one could figure out how to respond to Trump's low blows because Trump would keep going lower. Conservative political commentator Ben Shapiro may have summed it up best when he said, "How do you sling mud at someone made of mud?" Even today, it seems Trump will say something or do something so outrageous that decent people wonder how much lower he can go. Has he finally reached rock bottom? And will he now finally act more presidential? The answer always ends up being no, as Trump manages to do or say something even more outrageous a few days later, if not sooner. There simply are no depths to which he won't go to pump up his own ego or to denigrate another person. In time, there won't be any depth he won't go to stay in power, and his actions and words will shock us all beyond measure. Trump knows no bottom because the pit from which he draws inspiration is bottomless. Number 20. The angel of the bottomless pit is Apollyon. In Revelation we read, "And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue his name is Apollyon." According to the Bible, Apollyon means the destroyer. The Trump penthouse in Trump Tower is adorned with images of Apollo, a derivative of the name Apollyon. On the ceiling is a large mural of the Aurora fresco, also known as Triumph of Apollo, led by the Aurora. Considering the large number of statues and artwork dedicated to Apollo in Trump's penthouse, one can't help but conclude that Trump greatly admires the god Apollo. During the 5th century BC, Apollo became known as the sun god, the symbol of which was often used in ancient battles to represent the god of forces. Trump's entire penthouse is a testament to his love of Apollo, the sun god. But he doesn't just love the god of forces, he honors him. Number 21. The Antichrist honors the god of forces. In the book of Daniel, we read, "In his estate shall he honor the god of forces, and a god whom his fathers knew not shall he honor with gold and silver and with precious stones and pleasant things." The god of forces is the sun god, as I mentioned a moment ago, and Trump has a virtual shrine to the god of forces in his penthouse at Trump Tower. In it, you'll find statues of gold, of silver, of precious stones on display, all to honor the god of forces. Trump's love of gold is directly related to his love of the sun god, or the god of forces. Beyond the gaudy, over-the-top gold decor in his penthouse, and on nearly everything else he designs, Trump's love of gold even extended to the White House, where on the first day he replaced the red curtains of the Oval Office with those colored gold. Number 22. The counterfeit cross of the Antichrist. In Philippians, we read that Jesus humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. And in Mark, Jesus asked, "What does it profit a man to gain the whole world, but forfeit his soul?" The one enduring symbol of Christianity is the cross. To Christians, it signifies the incredible sacrifice that Jesus made for us, and the wonderful gift of eternal life that we can receive by simply accepting him into our lives. The image of the Christian cross is exceptionally powerful to those who believe. Thus, it should come as no surprise that the Antichrist would also have a very similar image, one that he would use to mark the things he claims are his. Only the cross of the Antichrist doesn't signify sacrifice and humility, but greed and ego. The Antichrist is proclaiming that it's the things of this world that matter, and that he is the one that we need to look up to and admire. The cross of the Antichrist is a testament to his monstrous ego. Trump's cross has one notable difference from the Christian cross. It's missing the head of the cross, perhaps a symbol that the Antichrist considers no one to be above him. Number 23. Christianity perverted. In Matthew, we read this statement from Jesus: "No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money." Preachers of the prosperity gospel have historically been on the fringes of Christianity, and for good reason. Their name-it-and-claim-it money-oriented gospel teaches that God wants his people to be wealthy, and that being successful is a sign of living a good Christian life. Unfortunately, the prosperity gospel is no longer on the outside looking in, but an integral part of the Trump administration. Trump has surrounded himself with preachers who connect personal wealth to one's Christian faith. In fact, Trump recently chose Paula White, a popular longtime prosperity preacher, to oversee his evangelical advisory board. This is not surprising since Trump grew up listening to and admiring Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, one of the original prosperity gospel preachers. By making the prosperity gospel the focal point of his evangelical advisory board, Trump has marked his administration's stamp of approval on his preferred Christian religion. The religion that one's money or financial success is connected to one's worship of God. Why does this matter? Because when the Antichrist and false prophet institute the mark of the beast, it will also connect one's money to worship. Only it will be the worship of the beast, not of God. You will not be able to buy or sell, that is, you won't have access to money unless you have the mark of the beast, signifying your worship of the beast. I'll talk more of the mark of the beast in a few moments, but suffice it to say for now that Trump's prosperity gospel, which connects money to worship, is exactly the same concept that will be at the heart of the Antichrist beast system. Number 24. Satan is described as a roaring lion that devours. In 1 Peter we read, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour." It's rather stunning that the Trump administration and Trump supporters cast him as a powerful lion on the prowl, or even riding a lion while carrying the American flag, looking for an enemy to devour. In one picture after another, we see Trump being compared to a lion, and the imagery is straight out of Bible prophecy. Number 25. The Bible speaks of nationalism and race war. In the book of Matthew, Jesus spoke of wars and rumors of wars, further breaking it down in the next verse as nation will rise up against nation and kingdom against kingdom. Why does Jesus differentiate between nations and kingdoms? Because the Greek word for nation is ethnos, which according to Strong's Concordance is defined as race or tribe. This clarifies that the nation will rise up against nation prophecy refers to nationalities at war. A part of this nationalism war is that the races will also be at loggerheads. If anything has defined the Trump era, it's his America First nationalism, which is often expressed by his supporters in ethnic or racial tones. Nationalism is taking hold around the world, and Trump is leading the way. It is my personal belief that we are headed for race war, and it will be in large part because Trump continually stokes racial tensions. This is exactly what the Antichrist will do. Number 26. The falling away. In 2 Thessalonians, we read an important verse about the Antichrist. "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and the man of sin be revealed." This verse connects the falling away to the man of sin. Christians will fall away from the gospel of Jesus and toward the gospel of the Antichrist. In other words, the falling away is what shines a light on the man of sin, revealing his identity. This massive falling away has in fact happened just over the last couple of years, as countless Christians have abandoned the true gospel of Jesus to embrace a man who has made a name for himself in this world. To these Christians, the gospel of Jesus has become the gospel of Trump. Gone are the messages of love and forgiveness and salvation that Jesus taught, replaced by Trump's gospel of division, revenge, and greed. In this gospel, Trump's enemies are to be attacked, those who are different are to be vilified, and the love of money is above all. To those who have fallen away, Trump's name is hallowed before that of anyone else. "In Trump we trust" is the common refrain. Number 27. The unrighteous deception. Again, in 2 Thessalonians, we read, "The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteous deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth, that they might be saved." These verses refer to the Antichrist as the lawless one, which, as I mentioned before, is one of the names given in the Bible to this end-time figure. His coming is according to the working of Satan, but also he is assisted by unrighteous deception from those who don't love the truth. This unrighteous deception helps the Antichrist come to power and eventually rule the world. This very same unrighteous deception is now running rampant among Trump supporters, especially in the media, who conjure up one deceptive story or manipulated video after another in order to promote Trump. Thus, they have been deluded into fervently supporting a man with a history of lying and cheating. Those who practice this unrighteous deception have no love for the truth, instead believing that the ends justify the means. The idea that the ends justify the means is completely at odds with the biblical teaching that as he who called you is holy, you also be holy in all of your conduct. Number 28, the strong delusion. As we continue in 2 Thessalonians, we read, "And for this reason God will send them strong delusion, that they should believe the lie, that they all may be condemned who did not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness." Conservative Christians have looked for the Antichrist to come for many years, and have debated whether this figure would be from Europe or the Middle East. Was he Muslim, Jewish? Surely he would be from the left and stand for those things diametrically opposite that of Christ. The assumption among all of these questions is that the Antichrist would be easy for true Christians to recognize because he would publicly embrace anti-Christian beliefs. Unfortunately, they fail to understand that the only way there could be a strong delusion is if the Antichrist arose under their noses, claiming to believe what they believed. There's simply no delusion if he's easy to recognize. For many years, conservatives have hated the left, the mainstream media, Hollywood, and all things that weren't conservative. Then someone who has made a name for himself around the world comes on the scene attacking the left, the mainstream media, Hollywood, the very same things that conservatives loathe. But why is it that conservatives can't see the evil of Donald J. Trump? Remember that video of a few people standing around passing a basketball to one another, and you're supposed to keep track of the number of passes that go from one person to another depending on the color of their shirt. Of course, what happens is you're so focused on counting the number of passes that you do not notice the gorilla going right through the middle of the scene and out the other side. This is exactly what has happened with conservative Christianity. They have been so busy focusing on the evils of what the left is, of what the mainstream media is, what Hollywood is, that they have not noticed the evil right in their midst. Number 29. The Antichrist starts small but grows powerful. According to the Bible, the Antichrist shall become strong with a small people. The Antichrist isn't someone who will rule the world overnight. Rather, he starts out on a limited scale and, with the aid of a small group of people, becomes incredibly powerful. Likewise, Trump's political career started in spurts, as he toyed with the idea of running for office 3 different times, in 1987, in 2000, and in 2003, before eventually shocking the world in 2016. Trump's 2016 election victory was indeed propelled by a smaller group of people than supported his opponent, perhaps even a lot smaller if you count in the help he received from foreign actors. Even to this day, Trump's popularity among Americans is in the minority, and the plurality of people disapprove of him. Number 30. The Antichrist attains the kingdom by flatteries. According to the book of Daniel, the Antichrist shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. The Antichrist will first achieve the kingdom, not by war, but by using the power of flattery to seduce those he needs to support him. Donald Trump has excelled at heaping over-the-top praise on groups he needs to support him, as well as those who have complimented him or praised him in some way. While you may think that all politicians do this, Trump has directly complimented and overtly appealed to groups that Republicans previously have not, such as the gay community, while simultaneously appealing to ultra-conservatives who stand against homosexuality. To both groups, Trump's message is the same. No one will do for them what he will. The fact that these two groups are diametrically opposed to one another seems not to resonate with anyone. Other Bible translations render the term flatteries as deceit, deception, treachery, intrigue, and trickery. So the implication is clear that the Antichrist is not the least bit sincere in these flatteries, but is simply lying to these groups in order to use them for his own purposes. Trump also is famously susceptible to flattery, as he lives for the compliments he receives. To better understand how Trump uses the power of the flattery, I encourage you to simply Google Trump flattery, and you'll be amazed at the number of articles examining this phenomenon. Not only does Trump use flattery on others to get their support, but others use flattery on him to align themselves behind him. Number 31. The Antichrist conquers with a bow, but no arrows. In Revelation 6 we read, "And I saw, and behold a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him. He went forth conquering and to conquer." The Antichrist is the first of the four horsemen of Revelation 6. He is described as riding a white horse to symbolize that he portrays himself as the Savior. Interestingly, the verse states that he has a bow, but does not mention arrows. Despite this, he was given a crown and goes forth conquering and to conquer. If he doesn't have any arrows, what is the Antichrist launching with that bow? What exactly is his weapon of choice? Listen to what Trump said in a 1990 interview with New York Magazine. "I'm a guy who lies awake at night and thinks and plots," Trump said. Keep in mind this was 14 years before Twitter was invented and 17 years before he himself had joined. Now look at these two Bible verses. He devises wickedness on his bed. He sets himself in a way that is not good. He does not abhor evil. Woe to those who devise iniquity and work out evil on their beds. At morning light they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. Did you catch it? Those who practice evil, because it is in the power of their hand. Trump has indeed devised wickedness on his bed, and with his hands he launches attack after attack on Twitter. The phone is his proverbial bow, his tweets are the arrows, and with them he has indeed conquered one adversary after the other. Number 32. The Antichrist will succeed in all that he does. The Bible says that the Antichrist shall destroy fearfully and shall prosper and thrive. The Antichrist will be a force of nature, both destroying those who oppose him and prospering in all that he does. His successes will come in legion, and will be why many either worship him or acquiesce to his will. There are those who think Trump has failed at many of his objectives as president, whether getting the wall built or having his way on a variety of issues. They couldn't be farther from the truth, though, as nearly everything Trump has done has resulted in his getting what he wants. From successfully surviving the investigation into Russia's meddling in the 2016 election, to the impeachment, to systematically installing passionately pro-Trump political appointees throughout the government, to even destroying politically those who oppose him. Trump, like the Antichrist, will both destroy and prosper. In his second term, look for Trump to successfully destroy much of the free press by loosening the libel laws, and tout that as a major victory to his supporters. And they will, no doubt, agree. Number 33. The Antichrist shall do exploits. The Antichrist will do big things around the world, which is one of the reasons that all nations will marvel at him. His exploits will be clear for all to see, and he will be both praised and feared because of them. With Trump, there's no question that he views his own achievements in the most grandiose style imaginable. While much of what he says is hyperbole, there's no question that he has already achieved a great deal in this world. Trump will eventually have his Great Wall on the southern border, and he will eventually do many other exploits around the globe. And you can be sure that each one of these exploits will serve the purpose of telling us how great he is and how his name should be honored among men. Number 34. The Antichrist will think to change times and laws. I feel this is an overlooked prophecy and one that will end up shocking us when it comes to fruition. The words think to change make it clear that the Antichrist will look to change long-established laws that other men had not even dared to consider doing. Looking at Trump, there are two things that stand out regarding this prophecy. First, he has often said that libel laws need to be changed so that those who publish what he calls fake news can be sued. Obviously, this will clamp down severely on free speech, but that is exactly what Trump wants. Secondly, Trump has consistently spoken of eliminating presidential term limits, usually in a semi-joking manner. But it's one of those jokes that, when hearing it, you know that the joke teller is quite serious because he keeps coming back to it again and again. Take a second and look at this Trump quote from June 6, 2019. A poll should be done on which is more dishonest and deceitful newspaper, the failing New York Times or the Amazon Washington Post. They are both a disgrace to our country, the enemy of the people, but I can't figure out which is worse. The good news is at the end of 6 years, after America has been made great again, and I leave the beautiful White House, do you think the people would demand that I stay longer? Both of these horrible papers will go out of business and be forever gone. In this tweet, Trump attacks both the free press and tosses out the idea that he should remain president for more than 2 terms. When Trump gets a second term, and he will, look for him to change the libel laws and presidential term limits because both will be at the top of his to-do list. Number 35. The New World Order. Talk of a New World Order has been quite popular in recent decades among Christians, especially since the election of Barack Obama as president. Indeed, there are still a staggering number of YouTube videos that claim that Obama is the Antichrist, or will soon become Secretary General of the United Nations and lead us all into the New World Order. In truth, there isn't a need to speculate about when or where this New World Order is coming from. It's now happening right in front of us. We have someone now on the scene who is remaking the world order in his own image. He has withdrawn the United States from countless treaties. He is dismissive of long-time alliances with our allies. He speaks admirably of tyrants around the world, and he owns businesses throughout the world. If you are looking for the coming New World Order, look no further than Donald J. Trump. He's creating it right now in front of your eyes at this very moment. Number 36. The Antichrist will have a Mideast peace plan. One of the more well-known Bible prophecies involving the Antichrist is that he will put together a 7-year peace agreement among the nations in the Middle East. This peace deal is referred to as the Covenant with Many and will involve both Israel and the nations surrounding her. Surprisingly, Christian Trump supporters are ignoring the fact that the Trump administration is presently and very publicly working on a Mideast peace deal. This should make all Christians stand up and take notice, as it is a clear sign connecting Trump to the Antichrist. Trump has actually talked about doing a Mideast peace plan since at least 1987, referring to it as the ultimate deal in an interview with the now-defunct magazine Manhattan Inc. In the article, Trump not only talked about his ideas for peace, but displayed a frightening cavalier attitude about nuclear weapons. The picture on the front of the magazine showed Trump holding a dove, the dove understandably looking more than a bit uncomfortable. Over the years, Trump has referred to his idea for peace in the Middle East as either the ultimate deal or the deal of the century. Either way, Trump's Mideast peace plan is exactly what the Antichrist will do. Number 37. The second beast is the false prophet. The Antichrist is the first beast of Revelation 13, and he works in tandem with the second beast, the false prophet. It is this false prophet who will be responsible for the mark of the beast and so-called miracles in support of the Antichrist. Most people know that Trump is no fan of Pope Francis, going back to when Francis publicly stated that Trump wasn't a Christian. What most people don't know is that there is a concerted effort by many Trump allies, including Steve Bannon, to have Pope Francis step aside in favor of a more conservative pontiff. This new conservative pope would be pro-Trump, of course. The curious thing is that the majority of Trump's supporters are presently against Pope Francis, and the vast majority of those people who want a more conservative pope are supportive of Trump. This pro-Trump and anti-pope coalition is an irresistible force and will remake the White House-Vatican dynamic. The Antichrist Trump is about to have a pro-Trump pope who will be the false prophet, and these two will work together to wreak havoc in the world in the very near future. Although I obviously don't know who the next pope will be, I believe we should keep our eyes out for Cardinal Pietro Parolin. I will cover Parolin more in a future video. Number 38. The Antichrist is a ruthless world dictator. In the Bible, the Antichrist is described as a tyrant who will rule over the world with an iron fist. He will be a law unto himself and enforce his own new world order with a reign of terror the likes of which have never been seen. Trump has repeatedly bragged about being the law and order president and appears to be looking for any reason he can find to bring the U.S. military onto American streets. By all indications, Trump pines to be the American strongman, the type of leader who will crack down on anyone who dares to dissent. There is now a Keep America Safe slogan being promoted widely among Trump supporters, and it is exactly this kind of simplistic jargon that will delude people into backing Trump's police state. Trump's law and order presidency will soon evolve into the lawless one's new world order. Number 39. The Antichrist is a warmonger. The Antichrist seeks to conquer with a power unmatched by other nations. This power is so far above and beyond what other nations can do that they can do little but ask who can make war with him. In his very first speech to Congress after becoming president, Trump vowed to greatly increase military spending. This despite the fact that the United States maintains nearly 800 military bases in more than 70 countries and territories abroad. There are probably hundreds of more bases that we don't even know about because they are so secret. By contrast, Britain, France, and Russia have about 30 foreign bases combined. Trump has greatly expanded the military capabilities of the United States, including its nuclear arsenal. He has said he doesn't want to roll out using nukes. In less than 4 years as president, Trump has threatened nations with destruction, exponentially increased spending on the U.S. military, and repeatedly bragged about how strong and powerful it is. It is clear that Trump will not be happy until that overwhelmingly powerful military he built is finally used in ways that will shock the world, and it will be. Number 40. The third temple will be rebuilt. In Daniel, we read that the Antichrist will confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, but in the middle of the week he will put an end to sacrifice and offering. This verse clearly shows that the third temple will be rebuilt, since halfway through the 7-year peace plan, the Antichrist comes in to stop the sacrifice and offering. Beyond that, there are other passages that state that the Antichrist will eventually seat himself inside the temple and proclaim himself to be God. By coincidence, Trump is a builder.
That's what I do is I build. I was always very good at building. It was always my best thing. I think better than being president, I was maybe good at building.
My belief is that not only will a third temple be built as part of Trump's peace plan, but that a Trump-owned company will do the building. After it's finished, don't be surprised if the name Trump appears somewhere on the Third Temple structure itself, perhaps as an engraving or a plaque, to honor Trump's efforts to get it built. Number 41. Israel seeks the Messiah. Donald Trump is being called a type of King Cyrus by many in Israel, as well as the evangelical Christian community. To further connect Trump to the Antichrist in this matter, Trump's image is now being produced on temple coins alongside that of King Cyrus. Israel has named towns, train stations, and squares after Trump. He's been called the Shield of Jerusalem, the King and final U.S. President, and there's even a song called Super Trump. Israel is honoring Trump in a multitude of ways, and it all exactly fits the type of honor and worship that the Antichrist will receive in the final days. Both Israel and Trump supporters elevate Trump to a king-like status, which he approves of, and it won't be long before he elevates himself even beyond that. Number 42. The Antichrist breaks the Mideast Peace Covenant. As we read in 2 Thessalonians, another name for the Antichrist is the son of perdition. The Antichrist shares this name with Judas, who is also called the son of perdition by Jesus. Not long after proclaiming that peace and security has been achieved, the Antichrist will break the covenant that he himself put together. Just like the Antichrist, Trump is notoriously unfaithful, not just in his marriages, but in his business days, where contractors have had to sue him to try and get the money they were rightfully owed. Trump has continued this unfaithfulness as president, unilaterally withdrawing the United States from countless treaties and agreements. It won't be long before Trump breaks the very same peace covenant that he himself put together as the deal of the century. As Judas betrayed Jesus, so will Trump betray Israel. Number 43. The Antichrist Worldwide Economic System. In Revelation we read that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. The Antichrist will, via the false prophet, implement a worldwide economic system to enforce both loyalty and obedience. Only once loyalty to the Antichrist, signified by the mark of the beast, will allow participation in the world economy. At that time, if you refuse the mark, you will not be allowed to buy or sell, and thus have no access to money. Donald Trump is obsessed with money, but even more so with the nation's economy, which he has called the greatest economy in the history of the world. Trump has taken full credit for the economy and views it as his crowning achievement in his first term as president. Coincidentally, Trump is also obsessed with loyalty and with promoting his own name. These three things together, the need for loyalty, the promotion of his own name, and the tie-in to the economy, are traits that both Trump and the Antichrist share. Number 44. The Mark of the Beast. Contrary to what many Christians believe, it is not the Antichrist who institutes the mark of the beast. Rather, it is the false prophet, the second beast of Revelation 13, who causes the world to receive the mark on their right hands or foreheads. This mark signifies one's allegiance to the beast and allows one to participate in the worldwide economic system of the Antichrist. Ironically, the current president of the United States already has a history of marking his name on dozens of buildings and properties around the world. This has either been done with the letter T as a simple mark, or his actual last name spelled out. There's also one particular number that is currently associated with President Donald Trump. That is the number 45, which signifies that he is the 45th President of the United States. Thus, we can now see that the mark of the beast is 1. Just a simple mark, 2. The name of the beast, or 3. The number of the name. Likewise, with Trump, we have seen that he already uses 1. A simple mark, or 2. His own name. We have yet to see what the number of his name might be, but I do feel that the number 45 will be involved somehow. Since world events are moving so quickly, we do need to pay attention to what's happening in the news. Perhaps another number will rise that will be the number of Trump. But for right now, I think we should keep the number 45 in the back of our minds because it does, at this moment, signify the number of Trump. In addition, Trump has a direct connection to the number 666, which I will cover more in a future video. It's important to note that foreshadowing is a literary device the Bible uses quite often. So is there presently any kind of mark or engraving that is now signifying an allegiance to one man? Is this mark or engraving worn on the forehead? As it turns out, yes, there is one specific mark that is presently worn on the forehead, and that does signify one's allegiance to one man. The MAGA name also bears a striking similarity to Magus, which was the name of a class of priests in ancient Persia. Who were these Magus priests? None other than sorcerers, astrologers, and magicians. They were the original chaos magicians of their time. MAGA hats are indeed a foreshadowing of the coming mark of the beast, as they signify an allegiance to one man, and the engraving is worn on the forehead. I believe you will soon see MAGA bracelets, rings, and gloves to further foreshadow the mark of the beast on one's right hand. It's quite striking that those who wear MAGA hats have such an unworldly allegiance to Trump, as if he is their be-all, end-all. And yet, that is exactly the same kind of allegiance that the Antichrist will receive from those who take his mark. Number 45. The Antichrist will claim to be God. It can be hard for most of us to imagine a scenario where any public figure starts calling himself God. And yet, according to the Bible, this is exactly what the Antichrist will eventually do. His out-of-control ego and innate desire to be worshipped will result in the most outrageous claim possible. The odd thing about Trump's bragging is that he keeps getting more outrageous with each passing day. For example, early in his presidency, he proclaimed that he was better than Obama. Then he was better than any modern president. Now he routinely claims to have done more for America than any president has ever done in our nation's history. Trump has even retweeted someone calling him God, with an added thank you reply as if he's acknowledging a truth. I simply ask that you pay attention to what he says about himself. It keeps getting more and more extreme, and he does continue to magnify himself above any human being. Praise means a lot to the Antichrist, and it means a lot to Donald Trump. Trump's eventual pronouncement that he is God is inevitable. This video has been about the Antichrist and the many biblical verses and signs that identify this figure as being Donald J. Trump. But what is it about Trump? More than half of this country hates him with every fiber of their beings. Meanwhile, his supporters back him unconditionally, even over the people and things they've loved their entire lives. They denigrate others in order to elevate Trump, becoming de facto mini-Trumps. His allies in the media and in Congress may not love him as much as they fear him, but they do view him as a means to an end, a rare opportunity to get all of the conservative policies and judges they've always wanted. In the meantime, if temporarily they have to call evil good and good evil, so be it. But this is more than just a cult of personality, as it resonates deeply on a visceral level. There is a dark energy that resonates from Trump, a virus of hatred that has seeped into the American psyche, infecting not just Trump supporters, but also those who rail against Trump. Take a second to think of the qualities of Jesus, such as honesty and forgiveness, even humbling himself unto death. Think about what he preached: to forgive others, to help those in need, to be kind and unselfish, to love each other as we love ourselves, and to love God above all. Now, take a second to think if any of these qualities exist in Donald J. Trump. They simply don't. In fact, Trump stands for all the things that are precisely the opposite of what Jesus Christ stands for. In every sense of the word, Donald J. Trump is anti-Christ. If this video has not convinced you that Trump is the Antichrist, I simply ask that you keep it in the back of your mind over the coming months and years. Watch carefully to what Trump does and the things he tweets about. Listen carefully to what he says, not just the words, but the intent behind those words. The more you pay attention to what Trump says and does, the more you will come to understand that there is a profoundly deep evil to this man. But there is good news.
You see, something is going to happen.
What? What's going to happen?
Something wonderful.
What?
I understand how you feel. You see, it's all very clear to me now. The whole thing. It's wonderful.
What's going to happen?